Yes, good evening, all of us, and good evening, our guest speaker, Sri Natarajan. I will just introduce him in brief. He is himself identifies as a common man. So I have sent his introduction already, and he is in the running field since maybe more than a decade, I think. He is at present 54, 5 years old, 53, I think, and is basically a marathon trainer, and he is authority in math. He is already an official trainer in math. That is maximum aerobic function, as all of us know. And we'll also get in touch in more details as the session in progress. So he's from Thane, and more about his other things that he is a versatile personality, ferocious reader, and he believes in life and he enjoys his life also. So, and basically he loves to learn and share the knowledge with the others. So he has already experience in the Zoom meet in COVID period, and he's a very lovable person. So you can ask anytime any queries to him and he will answer immediately. So that's all about Sri Natarajan, and the running world knows him as SN. So we'll proceed with the session. So again, I will welcome and greet all of you, and speaker also. So over to the speaker himself to introduce, and then we'll start with the question answers.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Dr. Prafulla Ambedkar. Thanks Jay Singh Rao Rane sir. Thanks Dr. Shantanu Tendulkar sir and Anjana ma'am. Everyone, thank you so much. And then I'm missing the voice of PM Prashant Madhav. I think he's having some audio issues. And thanks everyone for calling me here and then have a nice interaction. And to talk to runners, to talk to cyclists, to talk to swimmers is always a great pleasure for me because I myself is a runner and I got to know from Dr. Prafulla Ambedkar that you are a team of three groups and a lot of massive activities being done. Sindhudurg is being made as a central hub for a sort of thing. And there are many ultra runners, there are many marathoners, half marathoners, cyclists, BRM doers. I think amazing team of people. Just want to talk about myself as Dr. Ambedkar said that I'm just a common man. I was working with a company called Tata as a general manager, and then recently I've taken retirement a couple of years ago, and now I'm doing options trading for my living. And at the same time, I have qualified myself in full marathon training from American College of Sports Medicine, as well as qualified myself for MAF philosophy, which is propounded by Dr. Philip Maffetone. And I am a runner for last 6 years. I started my journey in 2017 Jan. I was diagnosed with tuberculosis uh, after almost 55 days of continuous fever. And that is the time I would request everyone to kindly go on mute so that during the session it may be useful. As of now, some noise is always permissible. And when I was diagnosed with tuberculosis, there was a report which was stating that I have a sort of cancer. So I felt that I should do something about it because I was a smoker for 30 years. So I just want to get out of that smoking habit as well. At the same time, I did some research and then I got to know that if I'm going to have cancer or if I'm already having cancer, the one of the method to reduce the intensity is to run slowly with weights in hand. This is what I studied. So I started following that running practice from 2017. So as most of us here, I have started my journey with health in focus. And before we start on to the session, I am finding that lot of medical practitioners are here. And normally you people take an oath that the first and foremost thing is I do no harm. That sort of pledge normally we take. And here also, I have taken myself a similar pledge. Whenever, whatever I speak would be bound by that. In life, there are two aspects. One is aspiration, and another is health. So these two are equally important. We cannot compromise on aspiration because that is what is improving the human race better and better. At the same time, health is the fundamental foundation. Without health, aspiration cannot be met. But only having aspiration and not having health is no good. So this entire discussion, whether you will be whatever the interaction I'm going to have with the team, it will be the primary focus that safety first, or I do no harm, that sort of principle. Yeah, with that, I just want to start off the session. If everyone is okay, everyone is got settled, then we can start off. Thanks, guys.
Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Rangana, and my first question will be because many of our colleagues are new to running. So, what will be the minimal needs needed for running? How to choose the proper shoes, clothes, etc., and what are the preparations are needed?
Basically, for beginners, I think we should go with whatever the comfort level we have. So we should get on with the same clothing. Even if I say someone to go with the shorts, probably the beginners would not go with. They would normally start off with a track pant. So I would leave it to them, whatever they want to choose as a attire. The only thing is what we should ensure is that we should not be wearing a pure cotton sort of t-shirt or pure cotton sort of track pant, because it would absorb the sweat and it would retain the sweat. So we don't want the retention of sweat. It has to get dissipated into the atmosphere. So it would always be better that we go with a partly synthetic fabric, which would function as a wick, like absorbing the sweat and dissipating into the atmosphere. That would be good. And also, when you are wearing, when the people, the beginners are wearing, they should also know a concept called chafing. Not what normally we say that whenever the two body parts are rubbing against each other, or if the cloth is rubbing against the body part, then there will be an abrasion which will be created, and that would be more and more painful when we are crossing, let's say, a distance of beyond 10 kilometers. So this is where we need to be careful. So the in order to prevent the abrasion, whatever is coming directly to the contact of the body should not move. When there is no relative motion, then the chafing can never happen. So normally, I have seen in my first formative years of running, that even the men used to get blood from their nipples. So it is always better that we put some band-aid if we are having a chafing problem. For ladies, there are special sports brazier available. They should go with that, and then they should check with the ultra runners what sort of thing they should wear, and then they should go with that. Now coming to the shoe, uh, whenever the new runners see that there are some runners who are running barefoot, the children way, the way normally we used to run as a children, and there are people who are running with shoes. I would, for a beginner, I would recommend that you go with always with running shoes. Do not start with barefoot. The barefoot can be done maybe after 3 months of your running or 4 months of your running. Do not start with barefoot. You go with the normal shoes. When I say normal shoes, not the formal shoes, but normal sport shoes. And you should not have a very thick cushion. So do not look at the cushion size. Normally, as a beginner, I used to look at what is the thickness of the cushion. So the more the thick, we would be the cushion effect would be more, which means that when we are running, our feet will get immersed into the land, which means that when we are removing it, there will be a lot of strain on our calf muscle. So we should have an impact like this. We should not have a cushioning effect. So it should be rebounding much faster. So we should not have a thick cushion. That is a only requirement. And whenever you are choosing a shoe, do not go with a brand. You normally go with at least half an inch. It should be having extra before your toe. You should always carry a pair of socks, because normally we tend to forget to carry our socks while going to the shoe market. So you better to carry our own socks and then use that. And when it comes to the socks, there also we should have a synthetic material. Do not go with pure cotton socks. Again, the sweat retention we need to prevent. So these are the basic you should go with. And then I do not know whether these are the attire you spoke about, Dr. Anjana, or you want anything beyond. For example, there are various aspects a runner should take care in terms of that the pace. What pace should run? how much to run initially. So now I would prefer that initially you go for a 3 minutes walk and then 1 minute run, and gradually you migrate to 2 minutes walk and 2 minutes run. And again next week we can go for 1 minute run, sorry, 1 minute walk and 3 minutes run. Gradually we can increase. And
I'm asking the next question. Yes, yes, the next question.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
asking the next question.
Yeah.
So some of our friends have phobia for the word run on the lighter side. They have phobia for the word run.
Okay.
So how do we start? Will it be a walk gradually, or will it be a mixed approach, that is a run and walk together? And how do we go about the running continuous at a stretch? I want that guidelines from you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Anjana. I think this is the one of the wonderful question even I faced as a beginner. So the point is that the, during our school days, most of us would have run, and some of us would not have run. So those who have not run at all in their life, I would recommend that they should go for a brisk walk and then gradually migrate towards running. Those who already done the running and all, so they may start with 3 minutes of walk and 1 minute of run alternatively. It should be a gradual process, bro. So nothing should be abrupt, nothing should be immediate. So because what happens normally, with the moment we start running, the beginners may think that I need to run fast. So now that is the problem with running. So the moment you run faster, then we would be increasing our heart rate. We are suddenly increasing our heart rate. So those things we need to not practice. So the ideal thing is that to run 1 minute only, and then go for 3 minutes walk. Again, run for 1 minute, go for a 3 minutes walk. Like that, gradually we should do. And every day, such set of 3 minutes walk and 1 minute running can be done for 7 minutes. So the totally somewhere around 30 minutes we would be doing. And this is what beginners should do. And the beginner should also gradually migrate towards 2 minutes of run and 2 minutes of walk. Week after week, they may increase the running time and reduce the walking time. The critical factor for any runner, I would like to tell, is that you have to manage your speed. The speed means that it is not about a 100-meter sprint or 200-meter sprint. We are going to be a long-time players. We are having an aspiration of doing full marathon and all. So what we should be doing is that we should be practicing singing a song while running. So the sense that whatever the best song we are aware of, that song we should be trying to sing without having any distortion, without having any gasping for breath. So when we can sing the song without gasping for breath, that is the pace we should be running at. That is the speed at which we should run at. So the beginner, I want to tell you that you may be already aware of what is speed, which is normally we say 5 kilometers per hour. In terms of pace, we normally reverse it. We inverse the equation. It is hour per kilometer or minutes per kilometer. Like that, we define pace. So it is always an inversion of speed. So beginners should enjoy, and once they are comfortable with the slow run and brisk walk, then they should also start with other processes, which I think maybe if there is a question, I'll answer that. The very, very critical about warm up and cool down, maybe I can take it up later. Yeah.
Fine. GB.
Thank you, Anjana madam. Good evening, sir. Myself, Dr. Girish. Sir, I want to know that what is warm up and cool down?
I think I was thinking about this point because this is before a run. The fundamental important point is about the warm up and run, warm up and cool down. I would like to look at running as a 3 components. One is rather 4 components. One is warm up, and second is the main run, and third one is cool down. The fourth one is recovery. So as of now, we'll keep the recovery aside. All these 4 components together is known as running process, right? So we would leave aside the 4th process as such. Recovery is nothing but you need to go and take rest. And now we'll talk about the warm up and cool down. The purpose of warm up is to prevent the injury. If I take the purpose of running, whatever we have explained before, is to fulfill our aspiration or to maintain our health. The purpose of running is to fulfill our aspiration or to maintain our health. The purpose of warm up is to prevent the injuries, and the purpose of cool down is to prevent the death. So what is much more important is the cool down, and next comes the warm up, and next comes the running. Of course, I already talked about the recovery, which is the first and foremost safety principle. So the running is the least important, where we are focusing on our aspirational fulfillment as well as sustenance of health. And the warm-up is for prevention of injuries. Why we are saying so? When we are doing the warm-up, it will be always be a gradual process. All our body is having a blood allocation mechanism. For example, maximum blood will go to visceral organ and it will go to brain. The moment we are going to start running abruptly, the body will understand this as a emergency scenario, and the body will start allocating all the blood, let's say 85% of the blood to the limbs which are going to run, which means that there is going to be sudden opening of all the valves, which is going to pump the blood to the limbs, and which is going to deprive the visceral organ as well as the brain, if you are going to start suddenly. If it is going to a gradual process, the gradual process itself will pump the heart rate, will pump the heart, and then more and more blood circulation will happen, and that is what is going to get the faster the limbs will get faster blood also. At the same time, the visceral organs, the quantum of blood would be sustained. So this is the safety process. So we need to follow this. Also, every joint, the joint, whatever we are moving, is having a fluid called synovial fluid. So this fluid has to get the viscosity has to get reduced. The moment we start warming up, because of the temperature, the viscosity will reduce and it will start flowing. This is another aspect of warm up. So these two are very, very important. At the same time, when we do the warm up, even our breathing will get normalized. Suddenly when we start, the breathing would never become normalized. So that is another aspect. So in order to become the breathing should normalize, we should always start gradual. My thought process is that of course, there is nothing called my thought process. Everything is what I learned from various stalwarts like Dr. Philip Maffetone or Matt Fitzgerald. These are the two people I've learned most of my running from. So the thought process, what they are saying is that you should gradually start everything. You should start with a walk, then go to a brisk walk mode, then go to a jog mode, and then go to a running mode. While following this sequence, you should get at least 1 quart of sweat. Normally, the human being will get a tendency of getting sweat at different parts of the body. For example, this may be the prone area for sweat. For somebody, it can be armpit. For somebody, it can be face itself. So wherever at least the first quart of sweat should come, a layer should form. Only then we can conclude the warm-up is done. Because when we go to a cold places, the sweat may not come immediately, which doesn't mean that just because I have done 15 minutes of warm-up, I'm going to start my running. No. For a full marathon and all, probably you may have to even go for 25 minutes to 30 minutes of warm-up. And if it is a cold place, probably even more. So, which is why the warm-up is very important. Now coming to the cool down. So the cool down, as I mentioned, that is another very, very important aspect, because that is what is going to prevent the death. Why I'm saying so is that you may feel that this is the over-exaggeration. I would like to do the over-exaggeration, because even to save 1 life out of 1 million is going to be very, very important for us. So we don't want to lose people. Most of the running incidents, if you see, the people are sprinting or people are speeding up beyond a kilometer. And the people are the age group of, let's say, 38 to 49 or 50. That sort of age group people would be subjected to these sort of problems. At the same time, when they don't do the cool down and they abruptly stop, if you notice any of your events, most of the events are not giving the space beyond the finishing line. They will immediately, there will be some people who will be wearing your medal, and then they will ask you to go to some place where you can have food and all. So you don't have a clear space. We want at least 15 minutes of cool down, so that there should be enough space to slow down and then go to a brisk walk and then go for a walk. Even if your friend is coming and started talking to you, you should ask them that, why don't you join me for a walk? Then let's go for 15 minutes walk and then get settled down. Because what is happening? The pool of blood, let's say we are, so far we are running. When we are running, the blood circulation is happening much faster. It is going through all our limbs. The moment we stop the run, the blood is going to get cooled down in our leg. If we completely stop or if we completely sit down. So we need to start pumping the blood back. Through the normal gravitational process or the pumping of the heart, the blood is flowing from top to bottom in our body. But how the blood is going to come from against the gravity? So there is a mechanism, what we call a second heart in our body, which is the calf muscle, the veins which are flowing muscles, and there are certain valves, vein valves. All these three would form a part of second heart. This second heart is going to push the blood up. And that is how the blood is going to reach back to your lungs and heart. So we should allow this process to happen. That is why the cool down is much more important than any of the part of the running. Thank you, Dr. Girish.
Thank you, sir. My second question is, what exactly is base building or aerobic base development?
Before base building, I would like to introduce a concept called MAF by itself. So because MAF is the fundamental requirement before we get into base building. Am I talk about MAF a bit before I get into base building? Is that fine? Okay, well, I'll take the liberty of talking about a MAF in a simple form. MAF is nothing but the maximum. MAF is nothing but a maximum aerobic function. Let me only.
Please mute your mic. Dr. Priyanka Patade.
Host can
Priyanka Patade.
So before we get into the base building process, I would like to talk about MAF in one or two lines. The MAF is nothing but maximum aerobic function. By the term itself, it is that we need to maximize our aerobic function. The aerobic function is very important for burning our fat. The ability to burn our fat as a maximum is the aerobic function, maximum aerobic function. Now let us address about the base building process. We will discuss about MAF a little bit later. As of now, we'll talk about base building process. The base building, as we know that, let's say I want to run. The moment I choose to run, I need to contract and expand my running muscles. In order to do that, the brain, the motor cortex will send the signal, and it passes through the spinal cord, and it gets split into various nerves. And every nerve which is attached to the muscle packets, sending the signals to the muscle packets for contraction and expansion. That is how we do the running. So you may now think about a bodybuilder, and you may think about Eliud Kipchoge. There are two players we are going to compare. The bodybuilder cannot run much faster the way Eliud Kipchoge runs. Why? Because there are at least 7 types of muscles discovered so far, of which we are going to discuss mainly about 2 types of muscles. One is aerobic muscle, another is anaerobic muscle. So the aerobic muscle in our body, let's say to the extent of around 75 to 80% of muscle is made of aerobic muscles, and the balance are for anaerobic muscles. So when we want to build the base, we are going to activate the aerobic muscle, which are the fat burning muscles. The anaerobic muscles are sugar burning muscles. So when we want to do the base building process, we need to train that aerobic muscles, and that is when the capillaries will get developed. The more we train, the more capillaries will get developed. When the blood is carried forward from arteries to arterioles to capillaries, the capillaries should be in a position to take the blood. At the same time, the capillary will increase in number of density, number of quantity. The density also will increase, and the diameter also will increase. These are the fundamental 3 principles of capillaries. Once this is done, our base will be built. But the point is that what is the fundamental point of base building? First of all, the oxygen has to get delivered to the muscles, right? So the muscle has to absorb the oxygen. So that process is what is known as base building process. Now, it cannot happen suddenly. It will happen over a period of years, which means that let's say I take a 4-month period, and then I train myself on an aerobic function, and then I take a normal training program. Again, when the next year comes, again I have to train myself for 4 to 5 months. But there are people who do continuously 2 years or 3 years of base building process, and then they go and migrate towards a regular training process. So the choice is ours, because I strongly believe that we should have aspiration fulfillment year after year. So we cannot keep on continuously doing the MAF, because normally when we do MAF, people normally tend to get bored, because they're also seeing the other players, other colleagues, other runners running together, and they are going much faster, and we are left behind. So I would recommend that at least we should do at least 4 months of base building process, which is training our muscle, which means that in developing the capillaries, which means that more and more mitochondria will come. So all those processes will happen during the base building process. Once you have done that, then we can go ahead with the regular training, anaerobic training process. Why aerobic base building is important? Why it is called as base building? Because while building any building also, we need a strong foundation. this aerobic muscles, which we talk about that 75% to 80%, would provide very good strength to the bones, ligaments, joints. So there are people who normally get even as a small twist on the road, they would get injured. So all those things would not happen if we are building our base strongly. And this is what the base building process all about. And of course, the book talks about almost 500 pages. We may not be in a position to cover all points. And if there is any specific doubt, we can address it later. Thanks, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Go to Ambedkar, sir.
Yeah. Yasan, as you
Yes.
said, the base building is going to strengthen the body and the whole thing. I think there is also the strengthening of the and increasing the efficiency of the cardiorespiratory apparatus also. So, and in particular, the body is going to control the mind automatically once you go through the process. And the habits like sleeping early, the attention to the diet, I think that's what I experienced in last 2 years when I started doing math. So what is your opinion? And then we'll proceed with the math.
So thanks, Dr. Prafulla. This is a wonderful question and close to my heart, because the MAF as a principle has three fundamental pillars. The first fundamental pillar is nutrition, and the second, which you spoke about, diet, and the second fundamental principle is that the exercise by itself, and the third fundamental principle is stress. So we will address the stress part a little later, and as of now we'll give the basic foundation of the MAF. Of these three pillars, every pillar are having their own subcomponents. For example, the nutrition pillar is having four more elements, which are carbohydrate, then inflammation. Though inflammation by word, it may not be coming under nutrition, but then the cause of the inflammation is caused by more and more fat, and which in turn is caused by carbohydrate. So inflammation is the second element, and the third element is vitamin D, and the fourth element is folate, which is B vitamin. So these are the four elements of nutrition. And the exercise by itself, which is exercise when we are doing above aerobic threshold, it is known as anaerobic exercise. When we are doing below aerobic threshold, is known as aerobic exercise. So we should be doing the exercise within the aerobic threshold, what we call as MAF zone. And the third pillar, I'll just explain the various components. This is a stress management pillar, under which we have stress by itself, aging, and brain. So totally there are 8 elements under the 3 pillars. So as Dr. Ambedkar was saying, that the sleep is very, very important, because we need to have that entire circadian cycle going nicely. So we need to start off early in the morning. When we get up, we will have very good thirsty. Normally we may not feel it, but then our body is completely having thirsty, because we have slept for almost 7 hours. During a day of 24 hours, we are drinking something or other, but then during the 7 hours of sleep, we don't drink much, right? So our body, due to the normal transpiration process also, we would have lost a lot of fluids. So first and foremost thing, drink fluid in ambient temperature, and then start off your day. So some people have the habit of having almonds. Some people take the aloe vera juice and drop into the water. These are all very good for health, because almond would not initiate any sugar trigger. So almond would subside as sugar trigger, and then to only give the fat trigger. So it is not a problem. So almonds we can have. So this is the starting point we should do as a nutrition process. And during the running, I would recommend that during the base building process of running, I'm not talking about the long distance running, what you are practicing for full marathon and all, that would come later. So during the base building process, I would recommend only to carry water, and then there is nothing else is needed. And after the base building, once you've done the workout and when you're coming back, then probably we should start eating fruits. One particular caution I would like to make: if you want to build your base, if you want to do running, do not take banana, do not take jackfruit, do not take chiku, do not take mangoes. These are the 4 fruits I would prefer that we should avoid. Why? Because these are all high glycemic fruits. So it should not be taken in the morning, early morning, because it will trigger the sugar. So we don't want triggering the sugar, and then some compensation will come from insulin. Though those hormonal disturbance we don't want. We want to go plain and simple, and then go and run and come back. So this is a very, very good then the nice base building process will happen. Probably people normally keep checking with me that why their heart rate is not coming down. This is one particular point, which is less hydration. Then having high glycemic fruits early in the morning would cause delay in the base building process. So once you come back, have fruits and then have your good breakfast, which is having a sufficient sprouts and then fruits, then eggs, all those things we can have, and then normal lunch. Any Indian food, staple food, which we have been fed by our mother and grandmothers are fabulous. So we should continue the same practice, and there is no change should be done. And anything processed we should avoid. Anything processed. I'm not even talking about Maggie or anything, but anything processed we should avoid. So even the polished rice we should avoid. Even the polished meat we should avoid. So and even if you are not in a position to avoid, minimize it. And then again, evening we should have something good snack. And by 7:30 we should complete our meal. Whether you are a medical practitioner, whether you are office goer, whether you are a businessman, a business lady, so you should complete your meal by 7:30. If you are packing your lunch, pack your dinner also. So you should have the meal and then come back if you are coming late. And then because at least you should give 2 hours after your evening meal before you hit the bed. And if you are going to hit the bed by 10 o'clock, your meal should have been completed by 8 o'clock. So everything should function. You should allow the time for digestion also, right? So all those things should be done, and then you should go for sleep. And yeah, so these are the basic nutrition we should follow. And any more specific nutrition requirement for during the race process and all, we can cover it later. About sleep, at least we should have 7 hours to 9 hours. The 7 hours is not is very, very minimal. Somebody may feel that I'm sleeping for 7 hours and I'm comfortable. No, you have to check with 9 hours sleep, and then you should say that whether you were comfortable with 7 hours sleep or whether you are comfortable with 9 hours sleep. So when we are saying 8 hours and 9 hours, it is more or less becoming impractical. So that is why even people started saying at least have a sleep of 7 hours. So it doesn't mean that we should take it as a norm. The norm is 8 or more, not 7 or less. But there are some school of thoughts that even if you are sleeping deep sleep for 4 hours, that is good enough. But then no one can have deep sleep more than 2 hours in my view. So your own Garmin will say what sort of good sleep you are having, provided you are wearing a chest strap based HR monitor, not the hand based HR monitor. That would not give correct reading. So we should not depend on that even for sleep quality. Dr. Praful Ambedkar, you want to cover anything more from my side? I can do that.
Yeah, now I think actually we can talk about the map. So a
Okay.
beginner, if
Yeah.
interested, how should he proceed with the map?
Yes. So MAF, we already spoke about that the basic definition we gave, that it is the ability to burn the fat. Now I would like to tell you why we need to have the ability to burn fat, because there are there are multiple type of energy sources, but then there are various currencies for various expenditure, right? For example, if I go to a vegetable shop, I normally pay Google Pay. And if I go to, let's say, I want to buy a laptop, I normally go through a credit card. So there are various currencies available for various type of expenditure. Similarly, when we are going for a 100-meter sprint, this guy, Usain Bolt and all, they would be utilizing creatine phosphate as a currency, at least for initial 20 meters or initial 25 meters. The creatine phosphate will get over within that initial 25 meters, then they will go for anaerobic sort of energy level. Similarly, for a long distance runner like you and me, we have to depend on fat. Why? Because let's say my weight is 60 kg for simplicity, and if my fat content is, let's say, around 20%, which means 12 kg of fat I have in my body, which means that 12,000 grams of fat, which means that approximately close to around 108,000 kilocalories I can generate from my body because of the fat. Whereas if you compare the sugar is the extractable sugar is hardly 450 grams, which means that 1,800 calories. And now you imagine on one side you have 108,000 calories of fat burning capability, you have 1,800 calories of sugar burning capability, and so obviously which is much higher, the fat burning is much higher. So if we can burn fat, then our energy requirement through sugar can go down dramatically. That is what we are looking for. At the same time, you cannot burn the fat alone, because in order to even burn sugar, not even burn fat, we need sugar. So let me take the analogy of a wooden log and a petrol. The wooden log, can it burn by itself? It may not. Even if you try to use some more and more matchstick, it would never get burnt. What we normally do, we sprinkle petrol, we sprinkle gasoline, and then we try to burn the wooden log. So the gasoline is nothing but the sugar, which is that 450 grams. And this wooden log is nothing but our 12 kilograms, which is 12,000 grams. So in order to burn the fat, we need some sugar. But at the same time, the moment we create the ability to burn fat, we can conserve the sugar. That is the fundamental purpose. Because though we have two energy sources, what is forming a constraint? The formation of constraint is sugar, because it is very, very less available. And assume for a moment you are going to go for a full marathon and you are 60 kilogram person. A full marathon, let's say 42 kilometers, and if you want to cover by a 60 kilogram person, 60 into 42, approximately around 2,520 kilocalories. I am not accounting for any inclination. I am just multiplying 60 kilogram multiplied by 42, 60 kilogram multiplied by 42.2 kilometers, which is what the total kilocalories, 2,500. Do you remember the sugar energy we spoke about, 1,800, which is far less than what is the total demand on us? So where it has to come from? Fat. Do you remember the fat energy, what it can deliver? It is around approximately 1 lakh or more. So we can do multiple marathons using, there are stalwarts available in this group, in your group. The beginners should learn that how they manage. That is, what they are doing is primarily they are burning fat. So which is where the MAF is getting more and more thing. And why this heart rate is important? Because that heart rate, where the fat burning ability will become maximum, is known as MAF heart rate. Now, how to arrive at that MAF heart rate? Based on the various years of study, 40 years of study, Dr. Philip Maffetone told that you have to consider three parameters. In any formula, 220 formula, or all those formula is considering only one element, which is the age factor. But whereas if you look at the MAF, it is more like a tailor-made. It is considering the three factors. One is age factor, second is your own fitness level, and third thing is your own health parameter. Let's say a person who has recently put into 2 stent, he came to me for a training. So can I give him a MAF formula straight away? No, I need to put that adjustments. So there are several adjustments available. One is that if I'm getting frequent cold, if I'm allergic to dust, if I'm getting frequent cold, I need to reduce the 10 points. Similarly, if I've recently undergone operation, doctors have not been given a clearance. They have given me the clearance for running, but not giving the clearance for anaerobic. So I should go with it further 10 points lesser. So like that, I have to do. So the formula, the basic formula is 180 minus age. After that, you have to apply the factors, which will subtract further 10 points. For example, if you are, let's say, a 40-year-old person, so 180 minus 40, 140. After that, if you are severely getting cold and cough frequently, then you should reduce by 10 points. The theory said initially 5 points. Now the theory has got changed, 10 points. So if you are already recently undergone operation, again further 10 points. So you are supposed to run at 120. So 120 you should not exceed, which means that we should be running between a band of 115 and 120 or 110 and 120. So that is how it should do. For example, some of you are improving year after year. If that is the case, then you can add 5 points as a bonus point. A 40-year-old person, the formula said 140. So add that 5%, 5 point, so it can become 145. So you will be running within the range of 135 to 145. You would not exceed. So that is how we should run. So this is what is MAF base building process, and this is what is MAF and why we should run at MAF. All the importance of the heart rate or this. Assume for a moment you are running very, very slowly to the extent of 100 heart rate. Let's say 102 heart rate or 105 heart rate. Will you ever get the ability? No, because you are not even subjecting yourself to that particular range. In order to reach the range, only then you will be able to get. Otherwise, you will be keep training for 10 years. You may not get that base building. So with this process, you can hope that within 2 or 3 years you'll be getting the base building. And if you are doing it continuously, if you don't want to do continuously, then take block of 4 years, 4 months, and do for several years. For example, I believe I learned from Dr. Philip Maffetone and Ashok Shomeshwar in Mumbai. So he used to tell me that every year he would do for 4 months. So this is my 5th year of base building process. I would be going for MAF run once again for the 5th year in continuation. Dr. Prafulla, is that fine, or you want to cover more points on this?
My question is about the map. So basically the season of the summer is probably good because we cannot keep on going with the intensity of the running. and there's a lot of sweating over here also. So preferably it should be basically minimum 4 months. You say about 60 to 90 days are good enough for the beginner to go with the map. And I think the all anaerobic sort of workouts like speed runs, intervals should be stopped. So as you said that it's just like a blossoming of a flower. So we should stick to the map. And what were the implementation, like whether to go with the smartwatches or whether to go with the chest straps?
So, first of all, thanks for all these pointers, because I think he has spoken my heart. The one of the example what I normally give is that the moment you go beyond the range. So when I'm saying 4 months of MAF, you should not do anything beyond MAF range. There are very, very limited activities which are permissible beyond the range. For example, having sex. When you are going to have sex, it is going to increase the heart rate. That point of time, we don't want to compromise the that sort of thing, the family bonding. So we would continue to have sex. Apart from sex, nothing else should be done beyond the heart rate. So the moment you do that, what can happen is the capillaries which are flowering, in the sense that the capillary is building now, the more and more we are doing, we're going to burn the sugar, and more anaerobic training we are going to do. It is as though we are dropping the flower and crushing it on our own foot, stamping it on our own foot. That should not happen, because we want to build our base. Why we want to collapse our flowering of capillaries? This is one point beautifully said. So this is one thing which is very, very important. Second is the measurement system itself, which he pointed out. Let's say when I'm going to maintain a range, the maintain a range, just a moment. The
Hello?
maintenance range can happen with various methods. I can keep my hand on my chest and then keep running and then try to measure. Is it going to be perfect? No, it cannot be going to be perfect. And then can I keep my pulse over here and then keep checking the heart rate while running? No, it may not be feasible. And the technology what is being used by the wrist-based watch is more like a the blood which is a return flow. So that itself is going to add lot of delay, lot of lag in the measurement. So what we want is closer to ECG accuracy. The one of the closer to ECG accuracy is the chest strap based heart rate measurement, which has two electrode patches directly get into the contact with our body, and that will throw up the right measurement. Where anything what we are going to depend upon, we cannot depend upon the wrong measurement system. If the fundamental measurement system is wrong, then we don't want to do that. So in my experience, I have tried my first year of running with wrist based, and it was a havoc. So, and then within 2 months time, I bought this, and then my running was comfortable. So when I started off, I was running at a pace of 13 and a half. All the runner would appreciate what a 13 and a half pace would mean. And within 3 weeks or so, I gone down to 8:30 pace or so. So what I want to tell you is that using a chest strap is more accurate, and that is more precise, and that is what we should use. One more thought process is that the accuracy is very, very important, right? Because otherwise, what is the fun in running? So we cannot depend on the wrong measurements. So there are two aspects. One is going wrong on the wrong side and going wrong on the right side. So we don't want to go on the wrong side at all. So we should not carry a belief that we are running correctly. So that itself is a flaw. I'm seeing a lot of people post in their post that my heart rate is 130, and they have done speed interval. How a heart rate can be 130 when you are doing the speed interval? The purpose of a speed interval itself is to enhance your VO2 max, which means that you are supposed to run at a maximum heart rate or slightly lesser than maximum heart rate for 3 minutes of the entire run stretch. That is not being done, and then your heart rate is showing 130 is pathetic, right? So the measurement has to be right method, and only then you should go for. Otherwise, please don't do. The Garmin is costing, or any other watch, sports watch is costing around 20,000, 25,000 to 30,000 or so, right? But if you take the chest strap, you can even get for 6,500 a decent chest strap. And the chest strap life is approximately 7 years or so. Only you need to change the button cells. So 7 years life, 7,000 rupees is hardly 1,000 rupees per year. Whereas Garmin is hardly going to last long for 4 years, for which we are spending a minimum of 25,000 to maximum of 70,000, 80,000 and all. So we need to think through and what is more important, and we should start spreading the message that right measurement is the way. Yeah, there will be some uncomfort comfortable feeling or discomfort feeling in the beginning 2 or 3 days, but you would get used to it. So and what I do is that people normally talk about my resting HR is 45, my resting HR is 35. Yeah, do we have a right measurement? So what I do is at least once in a month in a normal day, not an abnormal day. In a normal day, I would wear my chest strap and then go with that, go to sleep. That is my real resting HR, not any other method. I don't even believe for my training purpose. Normally, I don't take trainees if they don't have chest strap heart rate measurement. I would sponsor them. Otherwise, I would not allow them to train under me. That sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Prafulla, is that okay or? Dr. Girish, you are on mute.
Hello.
Yes, doc.
Hello.
Yeah, you are
yes,
audible
now. I want to know that. Yeah, sir. I want to know that role of breathing in running as a routine.
Oh, this is I remember one of my pulmonologists when I had tuberculosis. She was telling me that the first and foremost important thing in life is thinking process, because normally we get around more than a lakh thinking process in a day. More than a lakh thinking, cross thinking, multiple thinking will happen in a day. More than thousands and thousands of cross thinking. The second, if you come to the breathing, normally in a minute we breathe around 14 to 15 breathing per minute. So in a day of 1440 minutes, we may be doing around 16,000 breathing. So which is the second fundamental important thing in adherence to the basic. And the third important is normally we have hydration, which we need to keep sipping. The fourth important thing is food. Like that, the importance she was conveying to me. So I would say that whatever Dr. Girish has asked, guys, that is the most important thing, or the second most important thing. So breathing is very, very important, whether you are leading a routine life or normal life, or whether you are running. So I just want to mention that we have been bestowed with one important organ, which is nose. So the nose is meant for breathing. So I even wonder that why we need to even say nasal breathing, because nose is the only organ meant for breathing. So we should be going for that sort of breathing. And whether you are living a normal life or whether you are going for a run. So there are only few occasions we may not breathe through nose. We may also employ mouth. So otherwise, we should always use nose. There are few occasions where we may use mouth also, which is that, let's say we want to talk, we would be necessarily using mouth. Let's say you are going for a very, very fast run, like VO to max run or speed interval or repetitions. Probably you would be using your mouth also. And of course, I already mentioned that where a sex is coming, then you need to necessarily open your mouth, because there also it is a very, very high stressful activity. And also when you are, let's say, singing or talking, that time necessarily you would be using your mouth. Other than that, we should always be keeping our tight-lipped, and that is the best way to go for breathing. The more we breathe through nose, this is offering multiple benefits. I do not know whether we have time to talk about it. If we have time, then I would like to talk about it in at least for 5 to 10 minutes at length about that point. And mouth breathing is not at all good. But normally we see the sports people, they go and run like this, and they think that they are drawing more air inside. They are not. When you are doing nasal breathing, that is the time your air uptake, the oxygen uptake is at least 10 to 15% more than a mouth breathing. So mouth breathing, when sports athletes are doing like this, that means that they are not doing something great. They are only doing something wrong breathing. So we should go with a nasal breathing. There are some occasions, for example, VO to max, where you need to slightly open your mouth and run. You may allow to do so. Similarly, the tempo run, what we normally call the lactate threshold run also. So probably on 3rd kilometer or 4th kilometer, you may start opening your mouth slightly and then breathe through both the organs. So that is the importance of breathing. So the breathing is very, very important. And at the same time, before getting to the breathing, we have Nervous system, we all know central nervous system, and then peripheral nervous system. Under peripheral nervous system, we have sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So this parasympathetic nervous system is the one which is going to slow you down completely. So the sympathetic nervous system would make you to go much faster, would make you to breathe much faster, more and more oxygen you would like to take, and parasympathetic nervous system would allow you to take appropriate oxygen, very correct oxygen. You will slow down, you would tend to de-stress yourself. So we should have a mix of both this parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system and activation of these two. So mainly for living a life, we should not get stressed out. So parasympathetic nervous system should be used. And for that, nasal breathing is the only way. Yes, Dr. Girish, I hope the beginners are listening and they are getting a good clue out of this.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. My next question is, what is bolt?
Bolt is one of the fundamental parameter. I don't want to cover only bolt. I would like to take some extension of the other basic parameters. So in order to live the principle of healthy living, we also said that I do no harm. So for that principle, first of all, we should have our own measurement as a runner. For example, even before getting into the various lab tests, even before getting into any doctor, first of all, we should measure ourselves. Who are we? When I say who am I in terms of healthy, do I know what is my waist measurement, which is somewhere just above my navel? Do I know what is my waist measurement? Do I know what is my hip measurement, which is the maximum curvature of my buttock muscle? Do I know that measurement? Do I know the ratio between this waist and hip? If I know, is that less than 0.85 for a female? Is that less than 0.9 for a male? So that ratio is very critical. Waist to hip ratio is very critical. This we can measure ourselves. We don't need a doctor for this. Similarly, the another metric is waist to height. What is my waist and what is my height? This ratio has to be less than 0.5. If these two are not good, if these two ratios are not good, then we are obese. Let us, period. So if you are obese, let us not only focus on running. We need to focus on several activities. And Dr. Girish was talking about that we should also speak about BOLT, which is the next method, which is the next measurement, which is body oxygen level test. So what is my oxygen level in the body? That can be tested. That can be improved also by doing some measurement method. That is known as BOLT. Let me repeat: body oxygen level test. This is the acronym. The BOLT is an acronym. So what we normally do is that we should increase our oxygen uptake. One of the fundamental way of increasing oxygen uptake is to do this BOLT as a proactive measure and as a exercise during the day. So let me explain how the BOLT needs to be done. We have to, first of all, as soon as we get up in the morning, we just sit on the bed and completely exhale through our nose. Of course, the mouth is completely lip sealed. Now we are going to completely exhale through nose, which means that all the air is going out of nose. Then I'm going to make a pinch. I'm going to close my nose. At the same time, I'm going to start my stopwatch. How long I can hold on to my first urge of breathing back, how long in terms of seconds I can hold my breath under the exhaled condition, that score is known as BOLT. So this score cannot be dependent on one measurement. We have to take 3 such measurements at an interval of 3 minutes or 2 minutes. Once you have done that, we have got 3 measurements now. Do we need to take average? No, we are supposed to take the maximum of these 3, and that you can declare as a BOLT score. This BOLT score, you have to do it in the morning once and you have to do it in the evening once. So you should keep this measure in a daily log. And normally we had the habit of writing diaries, right? So in those days, so we should maintain a daily log. And once you maintain the daily log for initial 5 days, take the average of all the BOLT score. That is your base BOLT score. Once you know your base BOLT score, every day you keep checking BOLT. If on a particular day, if that is significantly different, for example, what is the significant difference? Let's say my base BOLT score is 23 seconds. I can hold the breath on exhalation, and that is my base score of BOLT. Now, on a particular day, if if the board score is 18 or less, 5 points or less, that day is a alarm. That day I am not normal. That day it is better that I go and tell my family members, yeah, I am not going to do any running. I am just going to go for a halka sa walking and come back. That day I will tell my family members that I am going to tell which route I am going to take and come back. That day I am going to keep wishing my friends and come back, because anybody and everybody would know which is my route on a particular day I am taking. Or it is better that you take rest at home. But there is no need to get panic, because even a cold, even a common cold or chest congestion would make you to reduce the board score significantly. But that doesn't mean that you need not go for a walk or a very, very slow jog. But it is always preferred that if your board score is matching with the base score, then you don't have any worries. You need not even look at the doctor. These are the fundamental biometric feedback mechanism available with our system. The moment you are having some problem, better go to consult a doctor. Tell doctor that this is the thing I've done, and then I'm finding myself abnormal. Please check me. Now I'm going to give some caveats. Caveats meaning that who should not do this? The pregnant lady should not do this. All those people who are listening this, whenever you are going to pass on the knowledge to somebody else, you should say pregnant lady should not do this. Even if you are communicating to a male member, please tell them that pregnant lady should not follow this. Also, whoever is having a heart disease, they should not follow this. They should not, on exhaled condition, they should not hold their nose. So if you feel abnormal, then don't do this. If you are having severe asthma, don't do this. So other people can do this and then maintain a track, and this is very, very good biometric. So what are the various biometric mechanisms we defined? Base to height ratio, base to hip ratio, and the bolt. These are the three fundamental biometric mechanisms one should maintain by ourselves, because these are the fundamental. Who am I? This is what these three parameters will tell who am I. So if you're obese, be careful on the food. That is what they tell. There is no fundamental point in keep running to reduce the weight. The running is going to maintain your weight. What is going to reduce your weight? What is going to manage your weight? What is going to make you healthy is food. 80% food contribution or 80% food contribution, running is going to come from 15% or so. Running, the major benefit of running or cycling or swimming is the peripheral benefits it is bringing. For example, we all know that when the moment I run or swim or ride, I feel high, I have a very good socialization. I also start doing yoga. I also start doing food habits. So that is the fundamental principle. So safety first, I do no harm principle. That these three metrics I should follow for myself. Thank you, Dr. Girish.
Thank you, sir. Over to Anjana, madam.
Is physical activity the only thing needed for running? So how important is the role of diet, nutrition, and sleep for running? Please guide.
No, for running, the exercise alone is not at all important, because some of the, if I tell you, it can be a shocker to some of the runners as well. Dr. Philip Maffetone says that don't do a normal warm-up, what people are doing. He says that you should gradually progress towards walk, then jog and run. Similarly, don't do the stretching also, because that is also cause injuries. So don't do stretching post run. Go for cool down. Cool down itself will make you flexible. So with that point, I just moving on to the next point, what Dr. Rangana wanted to talk about, which is the diet and nutrition, all those stuff. So carbohydrate is one of the fundamental staple food for most of us, right? So whether it is rice or roti, so or millets or whatever, even tur dal. If you take, if you punch in Google, normally tur dal, people carry an impression that is a protein. No, it is not protein. It is carbohydrate. So if you type in Google that 100 grams of tur dal, what is the carbohydrate content? It will throw up an image that 60 grams is carbohydrate. So where the tur dal is having protein is hardly any in tur dal. So now getting back to the point, the moment more and more carbohydrate I am going to take, my body has a capability of metabolizing only limited carbohydrate. What happens to the rest of the carbohydrate? It goes and gets deposited as a form of fat. It gets converted in the form of fat. So that is what we keep calling as a fat is increasing, but I'm not eating fat. I'm having only limited oil. No, limited oil is not the cause. The carbohydrate is a cause. So that is fundamental problem number one. The second problem with the carbohydrate is the more and more carbohydrate we take, the sugar will get triggered, and then the insulin will get produced, and the moment sugar gets generated, there is one, every cell has a lock. In our body, we have trillions of cells, right? The sugar also has to get into the cell. And the cell is having a valve. The cell is having a lock. The lock has to be opened before the sugar gets into the cell. So after that sugar goes into the cell, then the cell will get closed, the lock will get closed, and what all the excess sugar is addressed by the insulin. So it gets neutralized. So now our body is having a normal BSL level, so there is no problem whatsoever. The more and more carbohydrate we take, the ability to get into the cell will also get lost. The valve will not, first of all, open up. The sugar will not go inside. That problem will come first. The second problem is that the more and more insulin will also start producing, and the insulin will lose its ability to produce more and more. That itself is a second problem. So our body would become carbohydrate intolerance, and our body will become insulin intolerant. The more this scenario happens, the more and more inflammation will happen. Initially, when the inflammation starts off, it starts off as acute inflammation. Now, there are fundamentally two types of inflammation. One is acute inflammation, another is chronic inflammation. Is acute inflammation bad? No, it is a superb mechanism devised by the supreme authority. Whether you are a believer of God, God. If you are not a believer of God, it's a supreme authority. Whoever has given that is very, very good defense mechanism. Which one? The acute inflammation. It localizes the problem. The solution gets secreted, the hormones get secreted, it manages the problem locally, and then your body becomes normal. But if we keep allowing that to happen, then the inflammation will get converted from acute inflammation to chronic inflammation. So why I'm talking about inflammation when the food is coming into the play? Dr. Rangana told about talk about diet, because these sort of diets will transform from acute inflammation to chronic inflammation. So this is the fundamental importance of diet or food or whatever we speak about. Now, another aspect is that fat. Now we spoke about carbohydrate a little bit. We'll move on to the fat. In fat, there are various fats available. For example, omega-6 is available, which is also required. Omega-3 is available, which is also required. So, but the point is that if we take little more omega-6, then we are getting into problems. Omega-6 should be taken very, very limited. The more you take, the anti-inflammatory property goes down in our body. So that is another problem with omega-6. Where this omega-6 is available, for example, 30 years before, I started hearing the name called palm oil, then safola, then various vegetable oils, bran oil. According to Dr. Philip Maffetone, all these oils are bad. All are omega-6. The moment you take a little more, then you are going to get into problems. So we need to manage this omega-6 very, very restricted manner. Then what to take? Omega-3 is better. So where the omega-3 oil is available, we may have to Google, or we may have to first of all start taking extra virgin olive oil for salads, and then start taking at least the fundamental concept of cold pressed, the naturally available cold pressed till tail or cold pressed, which what we call a sesame oil, or even cold press oil we should take. But if you go and talk to any of the nutritionists, they would recommend you groundnut oil. They would recommend you coconut oil. I was telling my European runner, one of my trainee from Europe, why don't you start using coconut oil? He said he is following a nutritionist who is from London. She also mentioned that start using coconut oil. Then one runner I'm training, one US runner, his nutritionist is also saying that go and use coconut oil. So my point is that why don't we start changing the oil from any other oil to coconut oil? Then another option available with you is ghee, butter. These are all oil only, right? So we can start using these also. So long as either you are making in your house or somebody else is making, your neighbor is making. You can buy from your neighbor, or you can form a cottage. From cottage you can start buying. So what we don't want is processed. So we spoke about carbohydrate as a food. We spoke about fat as a food. Now we want to talk about the protein. Protein is another important intake, which would cover later, maybe if there is one more session. For ultra runners, protein is very, very important. For bodybuilders, protein is very, very important. For marathon runners, hardly 1.1 gram per kilogram of body weight is sufficient enough. And even 0.8 is sufficient enough so long as you are a fat burner. The moment your body becomes more and more fat burning, then the requirement of protein can also go down. That is what Dr. Philip Maffetone says. There is no need of even 1.2 gram per kilogram, what normally people recommend. Any nutritionist will recommend, any sport nutritionist will recommend 1.2. The more protein you take, you are getting into creatinine problems. So what I'm trying to tell you is that become a fat burner. The more and more fat burner you become, all those problems would start disappearing in your life. So this is about a protein intake. Now, coming to the vitamin D, though it is not about a diet, first of all, you should go under, it is coming under nutrition, because unless we go into the sunlight, our body cannot absorb sunlight. There is a, we normally think cholesterol is bad, right? So cholesterol is not bad. It is available just beneath the skin. The cholesterol is what is converting that vitamin D into, convert the sunlight and then convert it into vitamin D, and that is what is helping us. Vitamin D is only fundamental requirement for our brain function or for our nervous system function. For most of the function, vitamin D is very, very important. And so as the folate, which we spoke about, the other element, that folate is nothing but B vitamins, and that is also very, very important. Why? Because that is what is facilitating a lot of hormonal chemical reactions within the body. And these B vitamins, the folates, normally some of the time the food cannot give you folates, especially for the pregnant ladies. And that is when the doctors would recommend you to go for a folic acid tablets. Otherwise, normally doctors won't recommend folic acid, because the study at large says 30% of the world population is having genetic mutation for metabolizing the folic acid, which is the synthetic based. The natural based folate, the food based folate would never be a problem. But in absence of folate from food, doctors will be forced to give you folic acid with the hope that you would start your food normally and you would start getting natural food. So because of their force, what we think, we start taking folic acid and we don't metabolize. And the moment we don't metabolize, that gets stayed. And that is what is becoming a free radical, and that is what may cause you cancer. So when doctors are prescribing, take it only for the limited period and only for the limited purpose, and do not make it as a habit. So go for food-based diet, which is available in asparagus, spinach. There are a lot of vegetables you can Google and find out. There are non-veg eaters, you will get it in beef and all those stuff, which I may not be aware of. So you can Google and find out, and go for natural folate and avoid going for folic acid. The pregnant ladies may still continue to take folic acid because they may not get, they may be finding nausea while taking that green leafy vegetables during the time of pregnancy. They will be forced to give folic acid. Otherwise, don't take folic acid, because if you want to take folic acid, then there are genetic tests available. There are two types of genetic tests available. I don't remember the name. I think A1298C or whatever. There are two genes which are fundamental cause of these sort of problems. So if that gene is having mutation, then we cannot go for folic acid. So these are the fundamental food principles one should follow. Avoid anything to do with bought out, make inside, and even the ingredients which you are buying. For example, ghee. Don't buy ghee which is having preservatives. Don't buy butter which is having preservatives. You prepare your own. So take some time off and prepare. Or if you are not in a position to prepare, source it from a cottage which is available nearby. Cottage industry is always available for ghee and butter and all. You can start using that. Coconut oil is available. So start using those things. So this is about the diet. And of course, I think we spoke about sleep. In sleep, there is one thing called the combination of vitamin D. If you take vitamin D, then the melatonin will get produced appropriately, and that is what is a factor for sleep. In order to get a good sleep, and if you compromise sleep, what will happen? There is a growth hormone which gets produced. Let's say between 1:30 in the night to 3:30 in the night or so, and that also has to be 4 hours from your sleep. So if you calculate from 10 o'clock, somewhere around 2 o'clock in the midnight, the circadian cycle will start, the growth hormone will produce. Now, you may have asked, till what age the growth hormone gets produced? The maximum growth hormone gets produced till 21 or so, and beyond which the tapering down will happen. But even then, even if you are a 65, even if you are a 55-year-old person, you need whatever the minimum growth hormone is getting produced. So people normally think that I will sleep during the day. Anyway, I'm getting 7 hours sleep. No, that is not the point. You should sleep in the night. You should hit the bed by 10 o'clock. You should respect the circadian philosophy, and by which you should get that hormone which is getting produced within a window of 1:30 a.m. to 3 a.m. or whatever. So you should take the advantage. That is a fundamental principle of sleep. Also melatonin we spoke about. Also vitamin D combination we spoke about. in the factor of melatonin also. Yeah, Dr. Anjana, I think that is the point about this vitamin and
Yes,
all
sir.
those
The
diets.
next question is, considering today's lifestyle, stress is an inevitable part. So how to do stress management? Some guidelines.
Yeah. So before we get into the stress management, I would like to classify stress into three different parts. One is physical stress, and second is biochemical stress, and third thing is mental stress. Now let us go one by one so that we'll be having a much better position to understand all the three stresses. Physical stress. Uh, the way we are sitting now for almost close to 1.5 hours, is it good? Is it causing physical stress? Of course, yes. This is we are idling now, so that is causing physical stress. So we should keep walking once in 20 minutes or so, right? That is would reduce the stress. Now, it is not that only running causes stress. Even staying idle on our bed or chair will also cause stress, physical stress. Now we'll move on to the biochemical stress. Where the biochemical stress is coming from? The food what we eat, all those hormonal imbalance, that is a biochemical stress. The atmospheric pollution. I do not know what is the air quality in Sindhudurg. If you come to Bombay, it will be somewhere around 125 in a normal place. If you go to, let's say, a very prominent place in Bombay, it can be even 175. If you go to Delhi, somewhere in October, November, it can be even 274. The higher air quality index, the poorer the air quality. So if you are having 35 or below, you are blessed. So so you need to know what is your air quality index, where the place you are living in. Now coming to the other chemical stresses, the Vim bar, the soap what we are using, the perfume what we are directly applying on our body are all chemical stresses, right? So and there are people who normally lose hair little early. So those are all because of hormonal imbalance. Some people, some ladies will have hormonal issues, periods, delayed period or erratic periods. All those things are causing because of biochemical stress. Now coming to the third point, which is mental stress. You would have heard this point that do not expect too much, don't have higher expectation, don't have what do you call one is we should not have a higher expectation, and the second thing is that we should not think high. The sense that we should not aim high. So these are the fundamental comparison. Another problem is comparison. Don't compare yourself. So these are the two normal gyan we normally get, right? So this is also causing mental stress, and that is why people normally say don't compare yourself with others. Also, don't expect too much. So if we keep our expectation low, and also if we don't compare ourselves, then our stress can be managed. This is what normally people say about mental stress. But now, coming to the point, we are all human beings, right? Whether you are a doctor, whether you are a scientist, whether you are a common man, whether you are a poor person, we are all human beings. We all will have comparison. This is a basic instinct. We all will have higher expectation. This is a basic instinct. Can we avoid this? No, we should not avoid this basic instinct. This is the fundamental thing which is kept on improving without even comparing sound. How I learned the sound in first place, without even comparing the first taste of guava, without even comparing the first taste of laddu. How I learned that this is laddu. So the comparison is a fundamental thing for learning. So even artificial intelligence or even the machine learning, everything is comparing continuously, and that is why we are improving. So what should not happen is we should not get depressed by the comparison. So we should have a quiet mind. What is more important is having a quiet mind is more important. Comparison is going to bound to happen. Having higher expectation. Normally we talk about aim for the moon. And if you aim for the moon, then how can we say don't expect? So the point is that aim for the moon. If you are not achieving moon and if you are going to fall, don't get hurt by the fall. And that is a mind thing. You need to make your mind quiet. So there are various meditations available, and people normally think that meditation has to be done for 10 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day. No. If you want to become a perfect pianist, if you want to play piano perfectly, 8 hours of practice is required for daily basis. Then only you'll become world class. If you are an ultra, want to become ultra marathoner, you would be giving normally around 3 to 4 hours of running a day. So if you want to quieten your mind, will 10 minutes be okay? No. So you need to keep practicing. If you are a surgeon, then you would be, the more you focus on your surgery, That itself is more like a meditation. You should not be diverting your mind, right? That is, you instead of focusing on nothing, you focus on only one thing. So that way we can able to manage our mental stress. There are other ways to manage the mental stress or other ways to manage the entire stress process. First of all, one has to individually write down what are the various stress process. For example, my stress happens because of my anger. My stress is happening because of jealousy. Let me declare that these are the two fundamental problems I am facing. So if these are the two fundamental problems I am facing, I should know how to manage this, right? So similarly, you should write down all your stress, and then you should identify which stress is easily solvable. That stress you should first of all knock that off. Then you should focus on next stress, which is more prominent. What example? What I have done is I quit my job. Do I have any stress in the corporate life? No. Have I done the quitting of the job suddenly one day? No. I planned for 10 years. So similarly, one has to put a long-term process of how I'm going to manage my family, a single earning member family, how I was in a position to quit my corporate life, a primary position in a big company called Tata Motors, how I can able to quit. So I need to have a process for that. So if we have a process, then we can able to make ourselves independent and we can reduce our stress properly. So this is another thought process. About biochemical process, so the more you eat good food, the natural food, the subtle food, then the biochemicals, even the biochemical stress can be managed. If I go, I have checked with the 3 or 4 cancer patients, those who are suffering cancer, because that point of time, I was having a doubt that if I get cancer, then what I'm supposed to do. So I was talking to various cancer patients also. The initial 1 or 2 days of crying, weeping got over. The third day, I got into the job. I started checking the various cancer patients. What is it you are eating? They were telling me, to my surprise, that what I have read in the research papers, that even if you are stage 3 cancer or even if you are stage 4 cancer, you may die. At least you would be delaying the death by having vegetable, vegetable, and vegetable. Only vegetable you will survive easily. And there is one guy, Matt Fitzgerald. He has formed a pyramid of 9 food. If I have time, I have 2 more minutes. I would like to talk about the 9 food, which is starting from vegetables. That is a fundamental food. Then the second fundamental food is fruit. The third fundamental fruit is nuts and seeds. The fourth one is the whole grains. The fifth one is eggs and lean meats. The sixth one is any grain for the matter. The seventh one is any meat for the matter. The eighth one is sweets. Ninth one is fried food. So the fried food should be avoided. The sweets should be avoided. Rather, Matt Fitzgerald says first two foods are mandatory, which is vegetable and fruits. Rest all are you may take if you wish to take. The third food, it is very good. Nuts and seeds are very, very good. So because there are some good fats you are getting through almonds and walnuts and all those stuff. So even vitamins you would be getting, B12 vitamins you'll be getting through walnuts and all those stuff. So you may have those three. The rest are all human creation. It is for our taste. So if we can manage this, the stress level will automatically go down. The free radicals will automatically go down. Because of the vegetables and the fruits, our antioxidants, the production will be much higher. Because of this antioxidant production and because of reduction in free radicals, the any disease would go away. The Alzheimer's, this is the upcoming disease, right? Whoever I talk to, they are losing their memory once they hit their 65. They don't even remember that what they spoke before, what they Google search before 5 minutes. They don't even remember. This is because of the initial stage. So in order to maintain that, the carbohydrate should go down. The food has to be predominantly vegetables and fruits. So whether it is running or living life, for me, I am for living life. Running comes later. Running will happen automatically if you live life in the first principle, which is I do no harm. So if I follow that, rest of the things will follow automatically. That's it, Dr. Anjana.
Yeah, the last question is to talk about the lab parameters. Uh, if a runner wants to go for the lab, so maybe the hemoglobin levels, the ECG levels. So what should be the time, or it should be the intermittent, or whatever else? So can you
So
please
I
guide
would
them?
recommend that there are some people who are less than 40. I won't say 38 is also cannot be called as less than 40. 38 and above nowadays, we have to treat it as a different category. And 35 and below, we should keep it as a different category. So 35 and below, they need not do the test every year. They can go for once in 2 years also. Below 35, if they don't have any family background. If they have any family background. Now, who is family? Let me define that. Parents and grandparents on both sides. At least this much, 6 people we should check. If any one of these 6 people died, let's say less than 65 or so, then we should be careful. We should know what is the reason. We should check and find out what is the reason because of which they have died. So accordingly, we should be careful. If there is no family background problem whatsoever, if the person is less than 35, do check once in 2 years, whole body check or whatever. And if you are, let's say, above 40, and if you are going to be a full marathon runner, then better to check once in a year. And when to check once in a year? Just before your full marathon training starts, aerobic training starts, you should go for checkup. And if you are having a family background, then definitely go for echocardiogram. Don't avoid that. And if you don't have any family background, then go for normal test, ECG and normal test. Even a stress test can be done. So echocardiogram need not be done, but then even a normal stress test can be done. But now there are fundamental tests one has to do, whether you are do a full marathoner or a half marathoner or 10-kilometer runner or 5-kilometer runner. Dr. Prafula Ambedkar already mentioned about hemoglobin, which is fundamental principle, because hemoglobin is the carrier, right? When the hemoglobin is one of the protein in the blood, which is the carrier, right, of the oxygen. Unless the hemoglobin is present, the oxygen cannot be carried. Let's say we have 100 blood, and out of the 100 blood, 15 blood is hemoglobin. If 15 blood is hemoglobin, and that is what is carrying the oxygen. If 15 is going to become 12 or 11, the amount of oxygen which is carried by the blood is going to get reduced. So we want to check hemoglobin, fundamental point. Of course, the hemoglobin, when you are checking, you will be automatically checking CBC, the complete blood count. There is, you need to insist that to add a parameter called ESR. Normally, some of the labs may check when they do CBC or the ESR, erythrocyte or that sedimentation rate. Or there is one more test which is very critical is C-reactive protein. This C-reactive protein and ESR would measure the inflammation. So I would believe in C-reactive protein more than ESR, but both the parameters would talk about the inflammation of your body. Higher your body is having inflammation. First of all, tone it down. So people normally say that why my base is not getting built. The fundamental point is that if the C-reactive protein is already high, then probably your base would never get built. So you need to manage that C-reactive protein first. Now, what are the other tests? Vitamin D and vitamin B12. Vitamin D and vitamin B12 are mandatory. Why vitamin D is mandatory? The more vitamin D is, you are going to be much better off. Less it is, you are going to be fatigued. The problem with vitamin D is that if you don't have vitamin D, the bone is not going to release calcium. The moment the bone is going to release calcium, it is irreversible. For example, if your bone is having, let's say, 100 calcium, and the less and less vitamin D you have for a periodical time, for a chronic period, then the bone also will start losing calcium, and which is irreversible. Whatever medicine you may take, it can never go back to the original thing. So that is fundamental point. You have to have very good tight control on vitamin D. So normally people would say that 50 nanogram per ml of blood you need to have as a minimum of vitamin D, a maximum of 80. So 50 to 80 is the range. If you are in this range, you are better off. And now there is another factor. When to check this vitamin D? I normally check at the peak of the winter, which means that when the winter is going to get over, that is the time I would check vitamin D. Why? Because in winter we don't have much of a summer. So when the winter is completely getting over, that is the time. If my vitamin D is lower, let's say if my vitamin D is even 50, I can call myself, my vitamin control is very good. If my vitamin D is 45 or less than that during the end of the winter, then I would say that I need to increase my vitamin content either through sunlight or through doctor's advice, right? I would surely go for doctor's advice because they are the experts. They would define. While consuming vitamin D, do not consume on your own because there is a calculation for it which only doctors know. So the more you take vitamin D, it is a fat soluble. So it can form a sedimentation in your body. Do not take vitamin D on your own. Please don't take. Always consult doctors. And if you are going to take vitamin B12, doctor themselves would say, yeah, daily take one because it's a water soluble. Nothing is going to harm your body. But then still you go for which vitamin B12, which category you should take. That all those points they will mention. So these are the fundamental tests you should do. And I would also prefer that go for a lipid profile, the cholesterol. The doctors would tell you that more than 200 is a problem. But if you are a runner, it is better that to maintain below 150 or 160 level of cholesterol. And predominantly that HDL, which is a good cholesterol, what we call. Every cholesterol is good only. I'm not saying that others are bad cholesterol. The cholesterol per se is not bad. When you subject it to oxidation, that is the time it turns into bad. So long as it is present as cholesterol, no problem. But when you are subjecting it to oxidation, when it will have more and more oxidation because of fried food, it will have oxidation. So the problem is that cholesterol, God-given or supreme authority given cholesterol is not bad. When you are supplementing with something else, it's becoming bad. So you have to follow doctor's advice. What is the normal level? The HDL has to be increased. So if you are going to have 40 or less than 40, 50 or less than 50 is not great. The good sign is that if you are having 60 and above, this is another inflammation marker. HDL, if it is high, then you are not prone for inflammation or not prone for illness. If you're having 60, then your body is having a strong immunity. That is what I would conclude. So all these are given knowledge. So don't take my words because my is book knowledge. I've learned from Dr. Philip Maffetone. I've learned from Matt Fitzgerald. I've studied from books. Ultimately, when you are getting a blood test report in your hand, please go to a doctor and then consult. When you are going to a doctor, please don't go and show the report directly. You tell him that you tell her, the doctor, that this is the purpose for which you are visiting the doctor. And you do not go with only one point of data. One point of data, no doctor can interpret. You have to go with a multiple point of data, which means that every year after year after year after year, you are measuring that metric you need to have. And you should also tell you are not coming for a normal consultancy. You are coming for a specific consultancy because you are going to do a full marathon, which is beyond human potential. You do not give beyond to doctors, but at least you should at least tell that as a runner, you are going to go beyond human potential. So I want your very careful attention on these parameters. I have got these parameters. Please advise me how am I okay to go with my training process. This you have to take it. It is better that I don't know, but then you can normally go and show to the MBBS. You would take a call that whether you need to consult a MD or not, and do not get panic if the doctor is recommending to a MD. Just go with the thought process and don't Google, don't do anything. Go and show the report to doctors. So these are the medical tests one should do. And two more important points. I also recommend people to check for iron content. There is a parameter called ferritin. There is a parameter called I'm forgetting one, transferrin. So the transferrin is the transportation of iron. The transportation of iron is done by transferrin. The ferritin is a compound which is storing the iron. If the ferritin itself is less, where the iron is going to be? So we need to have adequate ferritin. We need to have adequate iron. We should also have adequate transferrin. The transferrin is what is going to transfer the ion. Ion, yeah, ion is getting transferred by transferrin. So these parameters also I recommend. Also, runners when they run, especially full marathoners and even longer, they should go for creatinine test, which means that you go for renal test as well. So if the creatinine is above 1.5 or 1.4 or 1.3, don't go for running. Go for halka jogging or very, very slow walk, because that is the sign of physical stress. If you're having a higher creatinine, that is the sign of physical stress. So you have to reduce the physical stress, which is you need to go for a normal walk. Maybe you can go for 10 kilometers walk or 9 kilometers walk in a day, but normal walk will bring down the creatinine. That's it. Yeah. These are the tests.
Yeah, fine. I think we should conclude now.
Yes, sir.
Now I think this is the time to just sum up. SN has talked very fluently, and that too in front of medical person so confidently. And I think he has covered most of the points what we wanted to cover. So he talked about the beginners, how to start. He talked on warm up and cool down. He talked about base building and map, because these are the topics they require a little more attention and more elaboration. But in a short period of time, he talked it very nicely. And mostly, I'll be pushing these all these points in the next few days with the backup of the write-up he has in the group called as Essence of Running. So one can visit on Facebook. So he has mostly written about the points which are covered over here. So one can go and just read the post, join the group Essence of Running, and then one can read all these posts regarding Bolt and all those things, the base building and the math. And lastly, he talked about the lab parameters also. So there's a difference between a simple person going for the lab and a person who wants to go for the half marathon and the marathon, and is going for the lab parameters. So there should not be any hinge or the second thought when to and what to do as a lab parameter, and then how to continue with your routine running and all and other workouts. So I think this is the perhaps the first session has covered almost everything, and I thank SN for your initiation and enthusiasm and very good coverage. And I will be going Sunday for the next session for few other details about exact how to prepare for the running and the event one by one. So on behalf of the Rangna runners and the other groups and Rangna Raginies, I thank you for the session and uh, wish a very good running career ahead, and wish that you go on continuing with the training part for most of the runners around, and will be very much please if you again in the future can help us and guide us. And we all invite you come down sometime in Sindhudur. So we'll have the interaction on the ground itself and on the in the indoors also. So I wish you all the best and good night. Yeah.
So I just want to add, first of all, my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Prafulla Ambedkar, and then he has always been my inspiration. And then he has introduced to me
Oh,
so many friends, Jai Singh Rao, Rane sir, and then Dr. Shantanu Tendulkar sir, and then Anjana Dr. Ma'am, and then Dr. Girish, and then so many others. I may not be knowing the name of all of you, but then my kind gratitude to you, all of you, for having me here. And then if there is any mistake I've done, please pardon me, because this is always a nervous moment for me to talk to the runners in front of medical practitioners. Is always going to be very, very tough. And then if I made any mistake, kindly pardon and then take this as my ignorance, and I'll keep improving. And I will take the offer of Dr. Prafulla that to come to Sindhudurg and then enjoy a good time with having nice interaction with you all, and they keep giving me some opportunities, and I'll keep sharing whatever I know of. And then it has been wonderful and pleasure to have you all here. And then some of the comments I have seen thanking me, and again I'm thanking back to you that for listening to me patiently, and then hearing whatever the knowledge I've gained. And normally I say that nothing is mine, not even my shadow. So every thing what I acquired is from some of the stalwarts who I followed. So do not take this as a person who is running into the last 6 months, 6 years only. So he has not done more full marathons than me. He has not done more half marathons than me. No, these are the experts whom I've learned. So kindly take that manner. Do not take it from SN. take it from the experts who are giving the knowledge. That is what I would request humbly. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Dr. Professor Barkar, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you.
See
Thank
you
you.
in next session, sir. On Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm just leaving the call. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, PM. Thanks, PM. I nice to see you, but I hope that you could not able to hear your audio, but then we would have a conversation over phone. Thank you.
रेकॉर्डिंग बंद केलं का?
बकरा रेकॉर्डिंग बंद करा.
रेकॉर्डिंग बंद करा. बरं आता संडेचं टायमिंग किती ठेवूया?